on, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of JaAR. JaAR, for those of you that may be new, stands for Joe
and Amy
Review. This is our weekly show where we review the Magic stories. And if you missed last week's episode, I highly encourage you to check it out, because then you won't need an introduction for this gentleman. But who are you?
I hadn't thought about that.
It's been so many years.
My name is David.
So if you have not been tuning into the channel recently, Dave has been hanging out with us for our streams, and like I said on last week's JaAR as well, in some of the openings that we do on Mondays, the pre-release packs for Call Time. So I encourage you to, first of all, if you are not already subscribed and have that bell rung, you should do that, because you'll get notifications whenever any of our videos come out, and whenever we go live, which, by the way, this Friday, so the day after this video goes out, 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern Time, as we are live every Friday at that time, and Monday. This Friday, we will be playing Dragon Ball Z. We are going back to the Dragon Ball Z Budokai franchise, and we are going to Dragon Ball Z Budokai 3 after having finished Marvel's Avengers last week on stream. So I encourage you to be here for that. That should be an absolute blast. Dave, needless to say for me, but maybe for those at home, a fan of Dragon Ball Z, are you?
Very much so, yeah.
Okay, so that should be interesting. And Amy, do you know anything at all about Dragon Ball Z Budokai 3, besides that it's a sequel to the sequel to Dragon Ball Z Budokai, which you've played 1 and 2 of?
I mean, I know Piccolo and Trunks are cool, and everybody else sucks.
Salad.
Well, there you go. So that should be a very interesting stream. I encourage you to tune in. And if you're watching this after Friday at 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern Time, the day after this video comes out, then you can go to Video Games for All, links down in the description box below, and you can see the VOD of that, because that goes up on the Saturday, the day after. And if you're not subscribed there, you should do that too. You know, just an FYI. But if you are unaware, we are coming back, as we have promised, to the Battle for Zendikar / Oath of the Gatewatch stories here on JaAR. And this is story number 13, Nissa's Quest by Kimberly Kryness. So, Amy, it's a Nissa story by Kimberly Kryness. This is like, you know, all that Amy's ever wanted in life. Because Kimberly Kryness is great, and Amy loves Nissa, if people are unaware. My quick review at the top is I actually really, really liked this one. I thought that it had a great, like, beginning, middle, and end. I thought that it did really well to stand on its own as a story, and we can get maybe more perspective from Dave on that in terms of having not read the ones prior to it, but I thought this was a really good standalone story. And I'm going to skip Dave just for a second to go over to Amy for her quick review. What's your quick review at the top for this one?
My quick review is, I think it was a little slow in the beginning before I felt like it really got good. And I would kind of say that it is a good standalone story, but I feel like that's because they repeated a lot of the stuff that we already knew from the story right before it.
Okay. And then, Dave, what about you? Quick review at the top for you.
I also thought it was pretty good. I think it was kind of there was a kind of standard, like, it's the hopeless who regains hope in the the all is lost moment, and then kind of goes through just doing the regular duties, and then was able to, like, find the opening or find that thing that's missing inside them, kind of thing. But it was still pretty good. And in the broader context of, I at least know, like, this obviously be the Zendikar saga and what's happening, I thought for the situation at hand, I thought it worked well, and I got to know a bit more about Nissa and where she was coming from.
Good. So in terms of all of those, if that inspires you to want to read this story, you don't have to go searching for it, because we know it's an older one. First link, top link in the description down below, will take you to this story, this article, so that you can read it for yourself. Because these are older ones, we typically say that we review, we don't summarize. We'll do like a tiny bit of summarization, but it's not going to hit on all the big points. So I encourage you to go read it if any of our quick reviews gave you something to latch onto. But onto the full review itself, I mean, this was a Nissa story almost entirely. I mean, of the main characters, she was the only one there. There was Munda as a side character as well, and then new characters in Peely and Leek, as well as just random goblins in there, and Eldrazi. But
you don't peel leeks.
I mean, I might, because I know very little about leeks, except that I enjoy eating them.
Do you like peels?
Nice.
No. No, I don't.
Well, maybe you should. As Amy was commenting on, this continues from the prior story in that we hear a lot about the seeds that Nissa has. But again, it kind of references what you were talking about, Dave, which is that she talks about it a lot because that's her mission. She's reminding herself of her mission over and over again. I have these seeds, I need to get them to a safe place, or I need to be able to plant them. She wants to plant them back on Zendikar's soil, but is also aware, hey, look, worst comes to worst, I go to another planet, plant them somewhere else, Zendikar is safe somewhere else, but I should be able to save them here. I want to save them here, I just don't know because I've lost contact with the world and with my friend Ashaya. And, I mean, kind of shortly after she gained it, really.
Yeah.
Right? There's the ability to speak to the plane and et cetera. And, like, kind of coming into her own with finding out her abilities and meeting Ashaya. And then she loses it so quickly. So, having come to that moment, it kind of makes sense that she'd be, like, so desperate of, like, I'm going to come back here every night, I'm gonna wait, and I'm going to see maybe Zendikar comes back. Like, maybe it's not, all hope is not lost. Until finally telling herself, no, all hope is lost. You need to understand that, and still having that, like, modicum of hope lingering, even if it's not a spoken hope. It's still, like, just that feeling in her gut or whatever.
Well, I think she has, like, a concept of if it's the kind of thing where they're able to clear enough of the corruption, ultimately, that regrowth is a possibility, and that soul could come back if enough regrowth happens.
Well, and I think, I mean, because I was kind of struggling towards the beginning. I mean, towards the end, we got where her actual mission is. Right now, she knows I have to go to Colony Heart at the end. But in the beginning, I'm thinking to myself, what's her end game here? Like, what's her thought? And I think it truly was just desperation of, like, I'm just going to look. I'm just going to go everywhere. And she even has that moment, right, where she touches her hand to the ground and, like, really tries to feel for Zendikar. And she says, like, how many times am I going to do this before I just give up?
Right.
And it's like, yeah, I mean, that's kind of an important question to ask. But I was curious at that point of, like, what's her goal? What's her end game? And
it really kind of seemed like she didn't have one.
Right, it seemed like...
It was just, what's the next step?
Yeah.
You know, it was just, okay, I need to know what I'm going to do next, but I have no idea where I'm ultimately going.
Right. Helpless, desperation, etc.
Yeah.
I guess maybe it caught me at a down moment, or maybe I was just being sappy or whatever, but I enjoyed the Peely leak situation where Peely says, like, you know, everybody told me he was dead, but I knew he was here. In my heart, I knew he was. Everybody else said he wasn't. I knew he was. I loved that. I thought it worked really well. Like you were saying, it's that moment of, like, Nissa felt hopeless, finds that other person, right? I mean, it's a super cliched thing, but finds that outward influence that tells you how you're supposed to feel, even though it has nothing to do with your situation at all, but it's so similar to it that you can't help but be like, this is me. I am this you know what I mean?
Sure.
So, like,
but this is, you know, a war, and loss was going to be felt everywhere, so there was a commonality for everything anywhere. And what she was basically doing, it wasn't so much as, like, she was literally just kind of like, I'm walking through woods and something happens, but she was also, to some extent, doing her duties, so she was going to encounter somebody doing something like that.
Sure.
So, cliched, I understand, I absolutely agree. Yeah. But somewhat organic.
Right, and it worked. I mean, again, it worked. I liked it a lot. And the goblin, Peely, shows up and says, run, you gotta run. But Nissa is protecting that glade, or that clearing area, from the Eldrazi corruption. And so even though it was, I think, 36 Eldrazi showing up, and she had no connection to her magical abilities, she only had her sword, so she
usually gets that from the land, and the land wasn't showing up for her, so...
Yeah, and so she had to take down 36 Eldrazi with her sword, and again, there's the... she's doing it, she's succeeding, there's, like, a little bit of danger, but she takes care of it, and then there's a lot of bit of danger, and oh my god, do I have to planeswalk away? And the, saving the hero moment of Munda showing up kind of out of nowhere. We'd met Munda previously before. I love Munda as a character. I think he's awesome. Really badass. Also, kind of digressing slightly, a lot of good art in this one. Mm-hmm. Like, one, the art was good, but also a lot of it. Like, right, there were a lot of, like, art pieces throughout the story that you could stop, take a look at it. It was all very thematically appropriate for where we were in the story. It was nice to see, because we've had moments previously, either with the Kaldheim stories, which, by the way, we've reviewed all of, and you can go check out that playlist, but either with the Kaldheim stories or with some of the other versions of the Battle for Zendikar stories, where there were no pictures or only some, and it's like, for a game like Magic, which is so synonymous with great art, I mean, even Wizards prides themselves on that a lot, and they should, right, for the hard work that they do. You would think that the stories based on your properties, especially when you're talking about art and characters from your story, that you would have more, and this one did that. And so I appreciated being able to see that. It was good. It was good to see all the different, like, even the picture of the Eldrazi that they had, those Eldrazi were not the Eldrazi that were depicted as coming at Nissa, right? They were tall, like, bifurcated arms and stuff, Eldrazi. Doesn't matter. You're talking about a group of Eldrazi, you show us a picture of a group of Eldrazi. It makes perfect sense. So I really appreciated that. I thought they did a pretty good job there as well. I don't want to dominate the conversation here because there's two other people.
I mean, that's something I appreciate too, because I've said it in previous episodes where if there's no art to be provided, it kind of just feels like there's a lot less to the story, or I guess a lot less of a reason to write the story,
right?
If that makes sense. Like the story is not as important as you think it is.
Because it connects to the actual art and feels like it's like a synergy between the two.
Right. There's a like she said, there's a reason for it, which is super important.
Sorry.
No.
Okay. I want to point out that I've known about the game. Like, Zendikar was more or less my introduction to the wider Magic lore. I knew of Magic for a while to some extent, but then, I think Zendikar, well, not necessarily that it was the beginning, but I think had been like a jumping off point for a lot of people. It definitely was for me, and it was the first time I really knew about the lore. So I've known about the Gatewatch, and I knew about the major Planeswalker characters like Gideon and Jason and all the rest. This was one I was interested in that I've known that they have a good relationship with each other, they care about each other, they have their differences and all, but for the most part, they're family and their team. Nissa's monologue really revealed to me this notion that for all of their camaraderie, the rest of the group doesn't really get her, in that she understands a planet and the Earth and the realm of Zendikar the way nobody else does, because of her green magic and able to literally speak and commune with the spirit, and knowing that the spirit actually exists, whereas they say it's an elf perception, where it's like something that, it's all in your head, and she's like, no, I've spoken to this thing. And even her broader description in the monologue of when they say, for Zendikar, people don't really know what that means, because they think a tree is a tree, a rock is a rock, and she's doing the Pocahontas thing where,
yeah,
not in a bad way,
no,
but that everything is literally connected, that the ley lines flow through everything, and that all mass and energy are part of the same whole. So they're not fighting for the realm is bigger than they are, and vaster and deeper, and only she truly knows it. And for being a member of the team, for as many things as they've been through together, she's alone.
Right.
Yeah.
And not that I in any way disagree with you. To be fair, slightly, this is prior to the forming of the Gatewatch.
Okay.
So, this is how she starts her relationship with them. But, like I said, I in no way disagree with any of your sentiments or points. I still think even going forward, she is a member of the...
that you said still
yes, 100%. She is a member of the team after they form, but she's still alone. And we talked about this, all three of us talked about this before we started filming, but the idea of even her up to War of the Spark, right, in Dominaria, etc., where she's like, you know what, I'm leaving. Like, you guys are, for whatever reason, helping Liliana with this ridiculous quest. I was trying to help Zendikar. That was my whole goal the whole time. You all helped with that or joined in with that, like, because it was super important, right? It wasn't, the Gatewatch didn't form because Nissa was like, hi everybody, please help me. It was because Gideon was there for that purpose, Jace was there for that purpose, like, they came together for that reason.
For something that was very clearly and distinctively a higher purpose.
Right, an interplanar issue, which Planeswalkers correctly felt that they were kind of uniquely suited to handle because they knew, right, if Zendikar falls, that sucks, Zendikar falls. But if that's what's meant to happen to the plane, maybe the Planeswalkers feel like they shouldn't interfere. Nissa probably would because it's still her home plane, but for Jace and Gideon, they didn't have as much of a connection. Gideon did, but Jace kind of didn't. But the fact that they're Eldrazi, they live in the Blind Eternities, and so they could just pull out of Zendikar and put their hand in, oh, I don't know, Innistrad? Who knows? Anyway, I don't know why I would say that plane.
So.
No, that sounds ridiculous.
That doesn't sound like something that would happen.
Preposterous.
But, like, that's something that they're aware of, is like, this is kind of a big deal. Like, if we don't handle it here, it's going to happen somewhere else. So, you know, and also, Gideon's doing it to save the individuals on Zendikar, and so is Nissa. But still, like, that's why they came together, and yet like you said, she's on the outside because by the time they get to coming together, and again, it's that the hero's journey moment of like finally taking a breath and going, wait a minute, we've been going from this to this to this. What are we doing? Why are we doing this anymore? Like, we came together originally, actually, I mean, some people in D&D parties decide that, right? Like, they're like, okay, well, we came together to handle this first thing, and then something else came up, and then something else came up, but...
And it was a slippery slope that now we're just at this point where we're not even sure what we're doing or why.
Right, and that, like, is this worth it? Was this my ultimate goal, or did I just get distracted by all these other things, and now I'm stopping and saying, wait, let's reassess, let's figure out what the hell is going on. And when she eventually did that, she was like, I'm gonna go. Like, this is stupid, and you guys kind of suck. Like, my plane...
My realm still needs a lot of fucking help, guys, and you're just, like, bailing so you can do this other seemingly pointless thing.
Right, for this woman who, like, clearly doesn't care about you.
Yeah, and, well, I mean, and that wasn't even the point. Like, the fact that it was for Liliana and, like, how little they really knew about it being for Liliana only, that's not even really the point. The point is that Nissa cares about Zendikar before she cares about anything else. Mm-hmm. Zendikar comes first.
Yeah.
And these other people just didn't care enough.
But they couldn't, as far as how she knew Zendikar like nobody else.
Sure.
Like, Zendikar, she literally states, is like her closest friend.
Right.
Yeah.
And that, again, pretty continually holds true. She gets, you know, I guess, well, she has the moments with Chandra on Kaladesh, which then go away, and we're not going to talk about that here. Sorry. But yeah, I mean, she gains friends in the Gatewatch, but ultimately, when she finally remembers, like, hey, what am I doing again? Maybe we should go back to that. That's kind of that come home moment for her.
And we kind of learn in those stories, like, how sort of inept she is at, like, actually making friends with people, because that's not how she communicates. She communicates with a planet that communicates back to her, and that's a very different type of communication than she's needed to do with human beings that she's trying to make friends with. Yeah. So that's a difficult thing for her to do when the only person or the only thing that gets her is a planet.
Though she could show sympathy to a grieving goblin. I mean, she's not completely...
Right.
Right. Well, I was going to say, even that,
Well, I'm not saying she's a bad person.
No.
Right.
Like, she understands how to be kind.
Right.
It'd just be like she's going to the goblins like...
Yeah, she said it's been a long time since she's
She understands compassion without understanding how to befriend someone.
Okay.
Yeah, and because she's like, I haven't hugged somebody in a very long time, but I love the line of like, but I feel like that's something I should do right now, right? Like, which is hilarious because that's, for her, that makes perfect sense. That she's like,
and honestly, it's a really good thing that she was able to determine that,
right.
Because someone whose best friend is a planet might not be able to determine that.
Well, and especially
like, in
because
that situation, they might just be like, I don't know what the hell to do.
Right.
Know?
Well, and it's kind of interesting in that because she eventually becomes part blue, but that it's similar to Jace. Right? Jace is not necessarily great at social situations because if someone needs something, he could just read their mind to see what they need. Instead of like trying to guess or use social cues or something. And so for Nissa, if she needs to know what her friend the planet needs, she just listens to the planet, right? The planet's not going to be coy and hide things from her. The planet will put forth what it needs.
Right.
So, I just think that
people are more complex than that, and they don't necessarily tell you what they need, or they might not know what they need.
Yeah. And you have to read like subtext and stuff.
Yeah.
She's out in space and she's asking the planet, "What do you need?" The planet puts its rocky hands behind its back. It's like,
Come on, you're blushing. Like,
yeah.
So yeah, like that's why it's so interesting that they decided to go the route of part blue. Now, there's been criticism because in the newest set, or not the newest set, but Zendikar Rising, Nissa is part black, and there's not really a ton of explanation for why she's part black, even though when she went part blue, there was a lot of explanation, and they did a really good job of explaining why. But yeah, this time not so much. So, old stories versus new stories, but they're trying. I mean, Kaldheim was very good, by the way, if that was even a question. So again, feel free to watch our reviews. But I don't know. I mean,
She was just part black because they needed a black planeswalker.
That's 100% correct. Yes.
I would think that she'd be in mourning or something, and she has like the proximity to death, but that's my guess.
Well, and that was that. But for Zendikar Rising, though, that wasn't as much. You'd be right, but I don't think that was as much the story that they were trying to tell, because it was more like she came back to Zendikar. She's now trying to figure out the best way to fix the plane, and etc. Like, there wasn't as much like, oh god, this plane is dead, because it was, hey, this plane is getting better by the day. This is awesome. Like, everything's kind of coming back in bloom again, which is just very green. So, agreed, but also...
Okay, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, it's just slightly different from what was going on.
Makes a lot of sense, but they didn't write anything about that. They didn't even come close to mentioning anything like that.
Yeah.
That's the missed opportunity.
Yeah.
Right. And so, that's an assumption that we sitting here can kind of make, but who the hell knows?
Yeah. You guys tell me. I thought that the moment with Peely, again, like I said, maybe they caught me at a sentimental moment. Who knows? But I thought that moment with Peely was it made me feel things, right? Like, I felt bad for Peely in that moment where Peely's like Leek is dead, right? Peely's upset that Leek is dead, that she found Leek, but she looks down at herself. Her leg is hurt, and she's like, I should have been faster. I should have been here faster. And Nissa's like, you couldn't have, like, nothing would have made you here faster. And she looks down at her leg, is like, I could have been here faster. And again, people told me that he was gone, but I knew he was here. And she's like slapping her heart. And like, that's what that's what brings Nissa to. But I really, that really got me, right? I enjoyed that. I wasn't crying or anything. And trust me, I am not that guy who's like, I don't cry. Like, no, I have cried. That is a thing. But this did not make me emotional. But they're like crying emotional, but I felt things in that moment. Like, I thought it was a really emotional moment. But again, was that just me? What did...
Yeah, I mean, for me, it was much more emotional to hear Nissa talk about Zendikar.
Sure, sure, and that's fair.
I mean, yeah, not ugly cry level too, but yeah, I understood.
Sure.
That sense.
Yeah, no, it's fine. All I was going to say is let us know as well, for all of you. Because literally, any question that we ask each other, 100% you are more than welcome and encouraged to weigh in as well. So please, as always, feel free to do so. I think that this story was good for that reason.
I do also want to say, though, just about the ending, about, finding hope again. I'd only say that it kind of sort of came out of nowhere, of just like, you suddenly just like, oh, I got the inspiration, now I know where to go, I know where the thing is and everything, and it's like, teensy bit of a cop-out.
Sure.
But that's, I mean, the magic lore, I imagine they probably could do that, and it rode the arc of she's at her lowest depths and then she finds the hope again, and they wrote it very well for, like, how happy she was to be able to find the figurative spark.
Yeah. Nice.
But I don't know. I've never really heard of that notion of, and it is specifically in the. I don't know if we want to really get into what exactly who or what it is, but let's just say the structure and the thing she was meant to find, oddly hard to miss.
Conley Hart, sure. So
It's
Conley
like
Hart.
hidden.
Yes, but she obviously knew about it, right?
Yeah.
So, but
I understand his point when he's saying,
It's
like,
very
it kind of
big,
came out of frickin' nowhere.
Yeah.
Like, she was sitting there saying, oh, this whole thing is so terrible, I wish there was, like, the one thing that could fix it all.
Yeah.
And she knew about Conley Hart the whole time.
Zendikar's gone. Oh wait, there it is.
Yeah,
Right.
and it's
it was kind of just like, oh my god, I remembered this one thing that I totally would have remembered this whole fucking time.
It rides the wave of emotional, and
Right.
I understand it from storytelling standpoint.
Right.
It just felt a little weird. It was just
Right.
like, hey.
Sure, and I was
At
going to
least
say
the way they wrote it, because
Yeah.
it was just kind of like point A to point B without like a really well thought out distance between the two.
Sure. And I can say, I feel about 50-50 on it, because I think that, like, you're absolutely right. And I hadn't really thought of it that way, but it's a really good point that you bring up of, like, why didn't she clearly knows it. Like, it wasn't like Peely and Leek told her about Conley Hart, where she's like, oh, got it, then maybe it's there then, right? She knew about it all along in the back of her mind or whatever, and it just never came to the forefront. But I also know, for me as a person, I have definitely been, like, bogged down in a thought process or like a direction that I'm going in before I'm like, oh my god, I am an idiot. Why would I not just do this? It's so much easier. You know what I mean? Like it's
super focused on something to the point where you can't see the solution.
Right. It's like a weird blind spot for you in that moment, but that's not something that they that they pointed out. So
Right, they didn't say that. They really didn't say anything.
So that's why I'm 50-50, because I can see that it would be that way, but if it is, then maybe tell us, like, I don't know why I didn't think of it before. Like, maybe it's a blind spot for me or whatever, but, like, yeah,
Well, she was also very preoccupied with fending off the Eldrazi and keeping the seed safe, so she had a lot on her shoulders.
She did, well, and she even literally said she felt the weight of the seeds in her pocket. Mm-hmm. So, absolutely, and also kind of when she was in that fight before Munda showed up, feeling the tingling of the pull of planeswalking, right? Go. If things get bad, I have to go. These cannot be corrupted. I have to leave. It's my responsibility. But also, I have to protect this clearing, because this is where Zendikar is going to come back if it's coming back, right? So again, all those things in her head, Eldrazi attack, etc. And then when everything's relaxed, there's like that somber moment. You're thinking, you're in your feelings. Thanks, Drake. If you're in your feelings in that moment where, like, then you can stop and breathe and get to that point. But also, is that like too coincidental? Is that too much of an ex machina of just like, oh yeah? Or does it actually fairly make sense? And yeah, I can absolutely see where people could be like,
Yeah, I mean, I can't help but feel like if I was her, I would want to take a moment to planeswalk somewhere where I could hide the seeds safely and then come back to them when Zendikar was in a position to accept them.
Well, she seemed to have like such a convoluted plan of like, I'm going to protect these seeds and I'm going to keep coming back to this area because Ashaya's going to come back someday, right? Something's going to happen where either the Titan is going to show up, right, and everything's going to be lost anyway.
Right.
Or I'm going to, but I'm going to be here when Ashaya comes back. And maybe I just go back to Seagate or wherever Gideon is, right? Gideon's camp, Skyrock, right? Maybe I just go back there every day because I'll be safe there and I won't get picked off by a random Eldrazi while I'm sleeping at night. Or maybe I go to this spot every single day and then come back. It's like, again, that's, you know, are you really, is that really the best plan?
Right.
But
it's a little all over the place. And,
right.
and maybe, again, that's a testament to how much desperation she was feeling in those moments where her mind was scattered and the things that she was coming up with didn't really make that much sense.
Right.
She was just kind of like idea vomiting everywhere
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
none of it was really what she needed to be focusing on.
Mm-hmm.
Just wanted to point out real quick also, like, we were listening to Joe read it and everything, and like, Joe, you really love some of the writing in this thing, especially with some of the explanations, and just like when she was fighting off the Eldrazi, it's like, she apparently has the strength and the muster and the rage to throw an Eldrazi against a tree and just splatter it.
Which was so good. And the line of like, she didn't even have time to watch it drip down the trunk because she had to go fight something else.
That was my favorite line.
So good. Yeah, it was like willing to be very brutal. The other thing is,
so badass.
we learned in, at least the first time I learned it, really, was in Kaladesh. Nissa's very strong.
Yeah.
Nissa was able to lift a Gear Hulk, aka like, it's like a Pacific Rim robot.
Mm.
She just she grabbed his foot and like flipped it over. She's very strong. like ungodly strong. Like stronger than Gideon strong. And I don't know if that's a Zendikar elf thing, if that's a Nissa as a planeswalker thing, if that's a connection to the land thing. I have no
I think
idea.
that's a I'm drawing power from the planet thing.
Yeah, like
It's
the growth,
so cool though.
like rapid growth thing.
Yeah. Just
Because I feel like she wouldn't be that strong if she was just like hanging out on Ravnica. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know.
she's
Maybe.
yeah, but she's really like, I was very surprised. So yes, bringing that up, it's I was not surprised at this show of strength. I was surprised by the Kaladesh show of strength of just like, let me just flip this Gear Hulk over. Don't step on me. It's like, whoa, lady, holy crap. So yeah, that was very impressive to me.
Well,
So
and that's kind of one of the cool things about Nissa is she's surprising, and she's surprising because she's not showy.
yeah,
She has hidden depths.
well, people.
Jace is showy. Liliana is showy. Chandra is showy. Gideon is showy.
Yeah.
Every bit of her power that she uses for a purpose and doesn't use it in any other situation.
Right.
It's not because she wants to look strong, it's because she's trying to do something. And it kind of doesn't matter to her how it looks once it's done.
Mm-hmm. As long as it's effective.
Yay.
Yeah. It was. It's very interesting, and again, like a lot of fleshing out of Nissa in Battle for Zendikar, which is really important. It's really good. I mean, we got a lot of Nissa, and we get a lot of Gideon so far. We've gotten some Jace, but not a lot of Jace. But a lot of Nissa and a fair amount of Gideon so far in these stories. And if it was unclear, obviously we'll be doing more in the coming weeks. So definitely stay tuned for those. But again, overall, those were our feelings. Unless anybody has any last minute thoughts that I'm missing out on, I think that's.
I thought Dave did, but I guess not.
No.
Well, come up with something, Dave.
Quick!
Anyway, Dave's like, well, I guess I'll have to leave now.
He stands up and there's just like a piss mark on his head.
For those of you who are unaware, I've been saying it on our streams, and you should really watch 8 to 10 p.m. Mondays and Fridays. Our Monday streams are Magic Arena. Fridays are video games again. Dragon Ball Z this Friday. Stay tuned.
Yes.
And Fridays going forward will be the continuation of the series, however long it takes us to finish all 6 of the games. Budokai 1, 2, and 3, which we were on to 3, and then Tenkaichi 1, 2, and 3, which we have not gotten into yet. But I've mentioned on the streams, Dave is here with us, first of all, to be in these videos and to do streams and stuff with us, but also for a secret project that we are filming for Video Games for All that will be out at some point in September. So, Jesus Christ. So it's a long way away, I'll give you that, but what I encourage you to do nonetheless is to stay tuned to this channel and to that channel, Video Games for All. The link in the description down below. Subscribe and ring that bell. And also, like I said, staying tuned to the live streams. We will obviously be letting people know, like, hey, by the way, that Secret Project with Dave is coming up this day, or we'll be premiering this day, or whatever. You should stay tuned for that. It's going to be very good. Amy, are you enjoying the project so far as we film it? Yeah, thank you. For more of that, tune in for that project. It should be
the entire episode.
Yes, exactly. That's all it's going to be. But I really do hope everybody enjoyed this episode. I really, again, encourage you, if you missed JaAR last week, we did not do a Battle for Zendikar or Oath of the Gatewatch story. We did not do a Kaldheim story. We did a review again, or a post-review interview, so to speak, of War of the Spark Ravnica. It is a very polarizing thing, but I encourage you to check it out. It should be linked at the end here, popping up either over my face or Amy's, maybe covering up Dave's a little. But you should check that video out. I highly encourage you to do so. It's definitely a good one. I hate you so much. Holy crap. Hey, coming here to this video, going and watching that other War of the Spark interview video is a great way to join the 3 now of us as we all join you in showing off our...
#Vorthos Pride.
That's right. It was, it's a long point, but it's still just as important. So thank you all so very much for joining us.
I was just trying not to punch Dave in the face.
Do it!
Vorthos Pride!
I can feel the pride.
If it needs to be said, Dave, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
As always, it is an absolute pleasure. I hope you all enjoyed as well. Please feel free, if you have not already, welcome Dave in the comments down below back to JaAR, because again, this is your 4th now. Just racking them up.
Yeah.
It's just getting those check marks.
Eventually, it will be called The Dave Show.
I mean, again, he jacked our intro last week, so.
I mean, I don't know about that, but I think if I get the 12th one, I get a free donut.
There are some donuts right over there.
Okay. Yay.
So, that has been the end of, that's going to be the end of this particular episode. Sincerely, thank you for watching. Again, in addition to leaving your thoughts in the comments below, to any of the questions that we asked, to any points that you wanted to bring up yourself, of this story, of the other stories of Nissa as a character, Munda, Peely, Leak, etc. Whoever you want to talk to us about, we're more than happy to hear it. But in addition to that, liking helps out a lot, sharing helps out a lot, subscribing, ringing the bells, as we mentioned. Check out both Video Games for All, as I mentioned a bunch, but also, if you want to see more of this lovely lady over here, Gluten Free for All, down in the description box below. You should also check out, there may have been... Damn it! I was going to get to that!
There may have been ooze.
There may have been some filming for that done recently. Even though it's supposed to go there, it still made me mad. Okay, so thank you once again. And for now, from us here at the Geek for All family of channels, I have been Joe.
And I'm Amy.
And I'm David.
And as we always say, in whichever video of ours you watch next, we will see you all next time. Thanks, everybody.